So I'm Ismaelle Salomon. I'm based in Massachusetts, and I went to school for psychology. So I have a degree, my bachelor's degree in social psychology with a minor in African American history. Interesting thing. So actually, when I graduated from undergrad, I wanted to pursue a master's degree in speech therapy. I had worked a number of years with children and adults with like special needs. I started in early childhood education. I would say one of the biggest things that turned me off education is the politics of it. I think when you're young, you're optimistic. You're not really hip to the politics of education with administration and things like that and funding. I worked with a lot of, disadvantaged youth in the inner city. I didn't like a lot of the things I was seeing. I think I came into it with a savior complex, right? Like, I'm going to be the best teacher I can be. I'm going to save all of these kids. I'm going to inspire them. And that's not really what happened. I had a lot of kids, from rough neighborhoods, disadvantaged neighborhoods, a lot of crime, a lot of violence, right? And I couldn't save them all.
Run it. I can't take no loss. I don't even know what it costs. I hit the ground, then it go off. Yeah, hit the ground, then it go off. Yeah, I can't take no loss. I don't even know what it costs. Yeah, I hit the ground, then it go off.
So I actually had a friend at the time who was a recruiter for a pharmaceutical company. She knew that I was interested in, transitioning out of education, and she, kind of told me, the transferable skills, between like being a teacher and recruiting. The number one thing is having a passion for people, which I, have. I really fell into tech, to be honest with you. So I had a recruiter that reached out to me for a contract role with the transportation agency out in Manhattan. And I told her, I was like, you want me to be a technical recruiter to recruit engineers like for MTA? That's wild. And she's like, I could tell that you're sharp, great communicator. You have a great network. You've been in the industry for a number of years. So I interviewed for the role. I got the position. I really was surprised. I think what I enjoy about technical recruitment is the challenge. It's not easy to find good engineers. It's not just the technical piece, right? You're looking for a candidate that's going to be a good fit for the culture. Someone who really wants to learn the newer technologies, a good team player. So, I work for Charles River Development. So we're a fintech organization. We're a cross between, investment banking and software. So I'm a technical sourcer for the organization. I've been in my role for 8 months. So pretty much what I do is I get on, LinkedIn, Indeed, reach out to candidates. A lot of the positions I work on are like the more mid-level kind of engineering roles. So a lot of like cloud platform engineers. I'm getting a little bit into like the identity access management space, which is neat. But yeah, long story short, I love tech because it's a challenge, right? I'm one of the few women on my team. I'm the only woman of color on my team for talent acquisition. And I think that my ability to kind of, learn new things and kind of just jump into it. I love the challenge, right? So not everyone I recruit is a rock star. They're not always the ideal candidate, but I'm very receptive to feedback. And I think ultimately that's the key to success, right? Is knowing that not every day is going to be an easy day. You're always going to have challenges, but being willing to pivot and kind of learn, from your shortcomings to become, just a better sourcer, a better recruiter.
That's got to be very empowering being the only Black woman in that sector or in that group.
Yeah, definitely. I always kind of tell people, I think that I will always be a diversity kind of champion. I look at myself, right? Somebody had to take a chance on me and give me a chance. So for me, it's all about really connecting candidates with opportunities that are going to be fulfilling for them. So I never take it personally, right? I always tell people, you are your best advocate, right? You know your skills, where you are now and where you want to be. And I think a lot of feedback I've gotten from engineers is they want to be part of a team where they have a lot of like support. You know what I mean? The technology piece, I feel like is always going to be there, to get the funding and stuff like that. And the money, behind like integrating newer technologies, especially around like cybersecurity and things like that. But really to be part of a team where you're going to have the support you need, to grow, as an engineer or product manager or product director, whatever path you're on.
That's amazing. Have you ever looked at any of those recs and like the salaries and think, oh man, I need to pivot into tech. I need to learn. I need to learn some security.
Well, yeah, honestly, definitely like for the cybersecurity roles, I'm just like, yo, this is like insane money. And I think that's another thing I really like about talking with engineers. I love how excited they get to talk about the technology, to talk about their career path. I always kind of ask people, what are you most proud of, right? If you're talking to an engineer that's been in the industry for 5, 10, 15, 20 plus years, I'm like, what keeps you excited about tech? So I really enjoy those personal anecdotes and just learning more about candidates and what they're looking to do.
All of your have all of your sourcing roles been technical, like for technical personnel?
No, so I actually used to do like healthcare recruitment. So I used to recruit like nurses and social workers, and I came from the industry too, so it wasn't really enough of a challenge for me. Engineering, tech will always be a challenge, right? Because the words that they're throwing at me, I'm always Googling and trying to figure out like what's JavaScript, what's UX, UI design, what is this stuff, ultimately, what do we want this person to do? So yeah, I love the challenge of it.
Do you feel yourself like becoming more technical the longer you persist in this role, or is it just kind of like you do enough to just filter people so they can get to the technical stages of the interview?
Exactly. I do enough to kind of screen people. So, what I've been doing more of, especially for our senior level positions, when I meet with hiring managers, I ask them for technical questions just to get an insight into like how proficient, we need candidates to be. So, the work that we do, because we are an investment bank, we deal with a lot of money. So, a lot of our kind of systems and software, we can't fumble the bag, right? Like if these systems are down, we're not making money because, our portfolio managers and our asset managers need these systems to keep track of trades and investments. So I always kind of stress to people that yes, we are a software company, but we're also owned by an investment bank. So you have to look at the finance end of it too.
I have a
Got it.
serious question.
Mhm.
Have anyone ever said fumble the bag in an actual meeting? I'm just curious.
Oh, no,
I'm messing with
You
you.
said that to your candidates, like, "Hey, look, you made it. I'm gonna push you forward, but don't fumble the
Don't
bag."
fumble the bag.
no, no, no. So my thing is, I always tell candidates, I'm very big on coaching, right? Like it doesn't matter what the level, the position is, what the salary is. I try to prep people as much as possible. If I know anything about the hiring manager or any feedback they've given me, I tell people be as high energy as possible. I know it sounds ridiculous. You're like, this is tech, this is engineering. I tell people like you have to sell yourself, right? Like I can only vouch for you so much. So when have those 15 minutes or 20 minutes in front of the team, like, take notes. Feel free to ask somebody to repeat a question. I've seen that in the past, especially around the technical questions, rapid fire technical questions. It could be very like stressful. So I'm like, feel free to ask us to repeat the question. And also, if you don't know the answer, write down the question, right? So after the interview, you can go back and do the research and be like, oh, okay, they were asking about this. So I try to give as much feedback as possible.
So when you go back, you say, I'm sorry, Kenny, I'll let you do it. I'll let you pop your question out in a second. So when you have them go back, or when they go back to research the question again, you encourage them to, include that answer in a follow up email to the interviewers, or
No, so not necessarily. So what I encourage people to do, especially if they've been out of the interview process for a while, is just to jot down the technical question, right? So let's say that on average, we'll ask a candidate like 6 technical questions. What's the likelihood that they're going to answer all 6 correctly? So I just encourage candidates to write down the question. So then after the interview, they can just research it.
got it. Okay, I thought you were talking about like post interview. They've already gone through the technical aspects of the interview, and then they miss some of them. Because I've heard that, and it sounds like pretty sound, advice. If someone doesn't know a question, or they get something wrong, or maybe not 100% correct, and then they find that deficiency in their interview after the fact, that they when they send a thank you email or follow up email, they'll say, oh yeah, I looked up this question, and I don't think I, answered it to my own satisfaction, but through research, this is what I found. And me personally, I like that because it shows initiative. It shows the desire to have the answers and understand like what's, I wouldn't ask you a question in an interview that I wouldn't expect you to know or
Right.
expect you to at least want to know, right? You should at least want to know, not just to get through the interview. Know it
Right.
just so you have that, ability to speak to that, that specific subject matter. So I personally, I think that's a good move for a candidate to, go that extra mile.
During your process of looking for candidates, how many jump to salary? Because sometimes I know I get hit up from recruiters all the time asking me, "Hey, we got this position opening," um, but they won't tell you the salary up front. They want to interview you and do all this stuff in the background. Like, what's your steps of doing that when it comes to salary?
Yeah, so I would say I guess my process is a little bit different because I'm not a recruiter, I'm a sourcer. So let's just say on average, I got like what 15 like engineering positions. Like I don't really have the time to drag it out. So you ask me what the range is, I'm going to give you the range. I'll give you the bonus and I always include the job description too. I got to look at my schedule, right? I got 15 positions I have to fill. So it's just like I don't see the point of like dragging the process. Like I don't get anything out of it.
Yeah, no time wasted. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I always ask off the top, like, hey,
Yeah.
what's the range of this?
Yep.
Because at the end of the day, if it ain't at this level, why are we even having this conversation? I could be a great candidate, but if you're nowhere near my ballpark, doesn't do either of us any good. I don't get a job, you don't get to fill a spot.
Right. So the feedback I've heard from some recruiters in the past is that if a candidate off the top will ask what the salary is, they just won't move forward with them because they don't really feel like they're interested in the role.
Mm,
I could see that too.
yeah, I
For
can see that.
me, yeah, for me, it's a little bit different because, these are high priority positions.
Right,
So
right.
kind of just like if I have 15 positions and let's say like 10 of the 15 are mid-level roles that have been vacant for the last 6 months, it's like I'm thinking of burnout for the existing team, which is a concern, right? We don't want to have people leave any of our internal teams because they don't have the staffing and the support they need, especially for high priority projects. So it's like I don't really like to drag my feet when it comes to these roles, especially if I know it's a position that's been unfilled for 6 months or longer. So I try to move quickly, give people the salary, give them the job description, say, hey, take a look at it. If you're, I'm big on asking for referrals too. So even if the position's not a good fit for the candidate I reached out to, I'm like, hey, is there anyone in your network that could be better suited for this role? If so, feel free to pass my information along.
I noticed
And
you.
you seem pretty seasoned in this. I don't know if you said it, but how long have you been doing this?
So I've been a recruiter for 6 years. I'm like a year and a half into tech, so it's a different space. It's funny. I could tell sometimes when I talk to candidates, like because I have really strong business acumen about like what our company's doing. I try to connect with the CEO as much as possible and learn as much as I can from like our senior people. I find that a lot of like candidates I talk to are really impressed with kind of the business knowledge I have. And I always kind of tell them, I'm like, if I work for an organization, like I want to be confident that they're doing well financially. And it's like, I want to have the confidence when I'm reaching out to people, right? And saying, hey, you should join this organization, not because I'm telling you to, but because we're doing really well, as a company and we're performing well, right? So you should join us because we're doing well. And here are some of the things we're looking to do in the future. I find that when I can speak a little bit to the tech, let's say that, we're really looking to do more with cloud. If I could speak a little bit to that, that might pique someone's interest and be like, oh, tell me more about that. What are some of the things you guys are looking to do, with cloud technologies and stuff? So I'm very big on, just trying to join those calls with to learn more about the business, right? Because the business drives everything. The tech drives everything, right? When you look at some of these companies, how they're able to ramp up and hire people straight out of college, you'll ask people like, hey, you're graduating. What are the top 5 companies you want to work for? And they'll rattle off like Facebook, Google, you know what I mean? And you have to think about that. Like, what's the appeal with work? You know what I mean? And most of the time it's like, oh, I'm going to work for this organization because of the salary, because of the bonus, because of the stock, or I know somebody who works there. So it's like you constantly have to reassess, your brand presence and credibility, if you will.
When the pandemic came along, pretty much exposed the entire world to remote work, and I'm curious on how, if it is if it has become more difficult for you to bring people back into the office, or are those positions that you're hiring for at this point?
Yeah, definitely 100%. Right. And that's when I get on these intake meetings, with my hiring managers, that's the number one thing I'll ask them. Like, is there any flexibility to do fully remote? And, depending on the team and what they have going on, maybe, but I would say now, as of the last like 3 to 6 months, it's been like, it's hybrid, non-negotiable. Yeah, so as a sourcer, I don't do the entire process. So that's the difference between me and a recruiter. A recruiter does what's called full cycle recruitment, where they will post the job, screen the candidates, schedule the interviews, extend the offer, get the offer, create the offer letter. So I used to do full cycle recruitment, because I did a little bit of a pivot and I'm doing fintech recruitment, which is a mix of finance and technology. Um, it's a different space. It was a new challenge for me. So they had a recruiter opening when I interviewed for the role, but I decided to come in as a sourcer because I think that when you're kind of pivoting a little bit into a new industry, it's like you you want to make sure that you're really good at what you're doing before you take on the full cycle piece. So that's why I decided to come on as a sourcer. I've learned a lot in 8 months. I'm very big and proactive on kind of putting myself out there, right? Like, I'll show up to these meetings with all these senior people, right? These VPs, these SVPs, they're doing their presentations. And I ask them, right? Like, hey, I work in talent acquisition. I've been here for 8 months. I'm constantly talking to candidates. Why should somebody leave their current organization and work here? Right? Especially if it's someone that's well tenured. They've been with us for 10 years, 15 years. Particularly if they have a family, right? They have kids. I ask them, like, do you feel like you have a good work-life balance? And I think when you kind of ask those questions and you put people on the spot, it makes them think, right? Because most of the time the feedback I get is, wow, I've been here for 10 years and I can't remember the last time somebody asked me like why I've been here that long, right? And most of the time the feedback I get is the people that work at Charles River Development are very sharp, very dedicated, committed to getting the work done, and also a commitment to producing quality work. So I like to hear that. It makes you feel good when you're part of talent acquisition and you hear that people are having good experiences, especially for women, right? We know that women, particularly women of color, are very underrepresented, in tech. So especially if it's a woman that has a family, I'll ask them, right? Like, if you're able to be, at the top of your game, right? You're an SVP for us, or you're a managing director, um, it's hard work, right? There may be some travel involved, but if you're willing to still stick with the organization, then that must mean that, we're offering, we're able to provide some sort of work-life balance for you to continue doing the work that you do for us.
There's some value there.
Right.
Yeah. So would you consider yourself an introvert or extrovert?
Definitely an extrovert. My goodness. Like, I'll talk to anyone.
I can see it. I can tell it. And the reason why I asked, because I'm more of an introvert personally, but I can like bubble up the whole outgoing persona to where you're navigating the social circles and stuff like that. But I only have a little bit. But I guess you can just go.
So with you guys, with it being the fintech space, that's financials and technicals, right? So are you in your position? Do you only source tech talent, or do you also have to source finance professionals, if that's the right word for them?
Yeah, so I primarily do tech. I do a little bit of like implementation, which is a mix of like tech and consulting. So recruiting people that have to go out into our market and like present to our clients, and do like live software implementations for us. And they have to be tech savvy, because if there are any issues with the software, they have to be able to go in and kind of work through those technical issues.
You
Yeah,
talking like
I don't do corporate positions. So anything that would fall under like accounting or finance or payroll or like an administrative position, that would be considered a corporate role. So I wouldn't work on that position, but anything having to do, with engineering at any level, more like entry level to mid level, those are the type of positions I would be actively recruiting for.
And I guess is there like I guess another designation? I don't know, senior tech sorcerer that would go and push for like the senior level roles. I know you just said entry to mid.
Yeah, so it wouldn't necessarily be a sourcer. So I'm actually in the US at least, like our only sourcer. We do have sourcers in India because we do quite a bit of recruitment in India, but everyone else that I partner with is a technical recruiter. So my like the head of talent acquisition basically would take on those senior level roles. So, a VP position, CTO, right? Those high profile positions, our head of talent acquisition would work on those positions because they're much too senior for me.
You know what? I think I misunderstood what you were saying when you said entry to mid. I'm thinking about like technical, like you have the entry level guys, associate level, and then all the way up to senior principal, and it's a little confusing because different organizations have different names for them,
Right. Hmm.
so it's kind of weird, but
Yeah,
yeah.
right. It depends on the org. Like I've seen some companies that will call a principal someone that has like 15 years, but maybe another organization says 10 to 15 is considered principal. So it really does depend on the organization.
I've heard that like so I've heard some advice and I've done this too. Advice was given that if you're coming up to an interview, if you have the name of the person, do a little research on them, find their LinkedIn, find their social media, and find out some things they're interested in, and then bring those up in conversation to, I guess, build a rapport. Does that work? Like for you, have you ever experienced someone doing that to you, where they brought up some stuff about where you went to school or?
Yeah, so I would say it hasn't happened to me personally, but I've done that in an interview. So actually, my former manager had been with Charles River for 20 years. And that's one of the questions I asked him. I'm like, hey, I checked out your LinkedIn, saw that you've been with the organization for 20 years. And, that's a very impressive tenure. People typically don't stay with their organizations for that long. And I was like, what are all the things that caused you to be loyal to this organization for that long? And he actually paused. And that's how I knew that that was a really good question. And he said
Taking
it
a
to me
back.
too. He was just like, wow, like I've been here 20 years, right? And he's like, I can't remember the last time, if ever, anyone has ever asked me that question. And
Recognize it.
It's probably
yeah,
like,
yeah, and it
Yeah.
definitely put me on the map. And it's funny too, because I can remember he was just like, oh my goodness, like this was such a good interview. Like you researched, you knew what you were talking about, you knew what we did. And he was just like, I'm getting ready to go on vacation, but like I'm gonna, schedule your second and your third interview with the team. And, they should follow up with you. So by the time I come back from vacation, we could just debrief very quickly and kind of make a decision. So
that,
once I got the
that,
offer, I was like, I did that. I was like, I did that. Yeah.
Nice.
and it
Snatched
sounded
it
like the
in
thing
there.
was already in the bag. He said make a decision. You don't. How you schedule a second and third interview? You can't
Right,
schedule a
right.
third without the second one.
I'm gonna go in and get your desk ready, girl. 'Cause you
Yeah, yeah, and
coming.
I always kinda tell people preparation is key, right? Like, you have access to LinkedIn. LinkedIn is free,
Mm,
leverage these resources, find out who you're interviewing with, find out, if they've had a couple of promotions, right? Ask them, um,
awards.
ask them about their current role. I like to ask people, my engineers about projects. Like, give me an example of a most recent project you did where you had a lot of technical challenge. Walk me through how do you strategize, right? Let's say you got a critical incident, I don't know, at 1 o'clock in the morning, right? How do you do that? How do you just pivot to come up with a strategy and be prepared to present it to your team and be confident that you can execute on it, right? I think it's stressful, right?
Mm.
I read the job descriptions for our roles and I'm just like, I see why you're making top dollar because this is this is like 24/7, right? Especially if it's cybersecurity, you're expected to perform, but perform at a high level, like
Yeah.
at any given time too. I'm just like, I can't imagine someone putting me on the spot at 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm just going to be like, whoa, like I'm just waking up. That's crazy.
Yeah, the way I do it is I just sleep on it, and then I get up at 7 o'clock and I tell them what to do.
Yeah.
I wanna hear some stories. Like, what's some of the weirdest stuff that you had to contend with on the phone with a potential candidate?
What's
Like,
the weirdest? Oh my goodness. So I remember,
God.
and this was like very early in my career, like I used to work at an agency and I called this guy about a job. I can't even remember what the job was. He wasn't interested. He was already working. And he was like, wait a minute, you have such a nice voice. He was like, let me holler at you. Let me get your number. And I was just like, well, no, you can't get my number, but I appreciate the compliment. That was really sweet. He was just like, yeah, you just got such a nice voice. And I was just like, trying to shoot your shot.
I looked your LinkedIn up, and yeah, you cute. So
I was just like, okay. I was like, wow, this is different. But yeah, that was so weird. I can remember one time, this is real. I had a candidate come in for an in-person interview. She was like, are you Ismaelle? And I was like, yeah. We've been communicating via email. And she was like, you're black. And I
Oh,
was just
Lord.
like, yes. And she was just like, you sound white. She was like, I thought you were white. And I was like, I'm not. And she was just like, that's crazy. Like, you're a black woman. I was like, I am. And she's like, and your name is Ismaelle. And I was like, it is. And she's like, I had no idea that you were black. And I was just
like,
like,
that's not even a Caucasian name.
yeah, it really tripped her up. She was like, I thought you were Jewish. Like she wasn't feeling it was weird.
Yeah, I
Oh,
guess I can
it's
see
Jewish.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she thought I was Jewish. And I guess when she saw I was a black woman, she was just like, there's no way. And I was like, well, that's my name. Sorry to
that.
disappoint
So
you.
you're not Jewish?
No.
Oh man,
I'm Haitian. I'm Haitian
Oh,
American.
Hey.
my people.
I
My
never would have
people.
guessed that.
Yeah. And
Nice.
I was like, you gotta say the name with the accent. Ismaelle Salomon. It's giving
Oh,
Haitian.
There
wow.
you go.
Yeah,
Giving
definitely
it's
is.
giving Bible name, it's giving biblical. I'm just like, what
Now
are you
you
doing?
got Kenny talking.
Kenny
Kenny,
never talk.
I got a question
Hey, Kenny.
actually.
And now you got a
What?
question.
See?
I mean,
Now you
I've
got
been
a
had a question. Marco and Rico were just going at it. As you with you being a sorcerer, like as a sorcerer, a source.
Mhm.
What's some of the good questions you've heard from a candidate ask you about the company or just in general?
Yeah, so I've had people ask me, if they've gone on my LinkedIn, like, why did I join the organization? I think that's a good question. I told them I joined because I was looking for a challenge. I had done technical recruitment prior to Charles River, but I didn't have the finance piece. And I can remember the way that my manager worded it. He's like, you need to get into fintech. He's like, it's hot, basically. It's booming. He's like, you're young. He's like, you're inquisitive. You're going to come in here. You're going to learn this very complicated stuff. And he's like, and you're going to make a lot of money. And that was appealing to me, right? I was like, you see that in me? He's like, you got this. So, and then another reason why I joined is because my team is well tenured. So a lot of the technical recruiters I work with have been with the organization between, I think on the lower end, like 8 years, and max is like 15. So
Wow.
people stay with the organization. They enjoy the work that they do. They like the challenge of it. They have a good work life balance, and the pay is decent.
They're not fumbling that bag.
No, not at all.
There you go.
Are you seeing any shifts in the way you guys conduct business in light of newer technologies out there? You got, Chat GPT, all the AI. The AI is the new hotness right now, right?
Yeah.
Are you guys, investigating that at least, or talking about that?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
Not yet. I mean, maybe these conversations are happening behind the scenes and I'm not aware of it, but not yet. I haven't had anyone mention anything to me yet.
I have a question. So based on some of the job recs that you've seen, like during your whole tenure, if I'm a new guy interested in coming into tech, where would you encourage me to go into? Like if salary was a thing, like, yeah, you want to maximize your dollar, where would I go into?
It might sound weird to say, but law firms.
Law firms?
Mm-hmm. there are some law firms that, have like technical people on staff, whether it's like, what do they call it? I think it's like IT technical support. I tell people to get into roles where they work across time zones. I think that's
Follow the
that
sun.
makes you very marketable. If you're working with, working with like international teams, go for it. And then, of course, any organization that's willing to help with um, technical certifications, because they're pretty pricey, go for that. Or will just support you or provide any type of financial support with furthering your education. I'm like, if you could get that degree debt free, do it.
Mm.
Pick it
So,
out.
so
Don't
that
take
bring,
the debt. Don't take the loans if you don't have to, right? Everyone's situation's different. But if you could find an organization that will help cover some of the costs of the technical certifications, like try to get as many as possible, right?
what's some of the most juice you've seen somebody squeeze out of an offer? Like you got a candidate who's very qualified, but they need a few things. What's the most things that you've seen somebody ask for on top of like just the salary or the standard bonus that was already on the table?
I'm trying to think. Honestly, I don't feel like I've seen anything.
Leave, additional leave, or vacation days, or
I'm trying to think. No.
conferences, or
I mean,
training package.
is that even a thing? Like,
Yeah, is it?
do
Is
they
it?
do
Because
that
I'm not.
outside of TV, or they like, oh, you need to bring more to the table? And they're
And the
like, all
reason
right, yeah,
why the
we'll
Hmm.
reason
give
why
you
I asked
this.
because I had a manager that told me that he sat me down and said, you got to really, really sell yourself. If there's something that you want, you bring that to the table when you're at the table. If you want a certain amount of training, a certain amount of classes, or a certain amount of conferences, you let them know. You want 2 conferences, you want 4 training weeks, etc. But I just never seen it play out. So I was just
I've never
curious.
seen it play out. And to be honest with you, I think that most people aren't really that great with negotiation, right?
Right.
That's just the truth. I've talked to a lot of candidates and I've been fully transparent with them. I think I'll tell them like right off bat, I think you're lowballing yourself. If you're doing so because you think that by giving me a lower salary range, that I'll be more interested in pushing you forward, I actually won't do that because you're going to be that person that when we're getting ready to extend an offer, you're going to come back and re- decline the offer because you think the salary is too low. But when I asked you what you're looking for, you didn't tell me the 160 to 180. You said 140 to 150 when you know that you wouldn't accept an offer for 150 because that's what you're currently earning right now. So I just tell people, I'm like, listen, just tell me what you're looking for, be as transparent as possible so we can keep the process moving, because once you get to the offer stage where we've already done the work on our end, because at least for my organization, our CEO approves every job offer,
Mm.
right? And I don't know if every I'm sure not every organization is set up that way. um so I tell people that, you know what I mean? It's like by the time it gets to him, he might look at it and be like, this is your job title? You want how much? No. You know what I mean? So I'm just like, I think so some people are unaware of that, but I tell people that up front. I'm like, listen, by the time it gets to him, the numbers are either the math is either mathing or it's not, right? But
Mm.
I tell people that I was like, I think when you're part of an organization where the CEO is looking at every single offer, it holds everybody accountable, right? Because he wants to make sure that, we're not just blowing money. You
Mm.
know what I mean? We're not paying all of our engineers 300,000 when they're like 3
$2.99.
years into the, you know what I
Oh,
mean? Like let's make it reasonable, right? You're not going to have a junior level engineer making 300,000. And if you are, that's great for you. But for our organization, like we're going to compensate on the higher end where it makes sense to do so, right? Um and I think now that people are seeing a lot of layoffs, they're getting a better sense of how the business actually works. And I think more people are realizing that they have to have a vested interest in how well the company is doing, because if the company is not doing well, that's when you start getting emails that you're not going to get your bonus this quarter, right? Because
Right.
the organization as a whole, didn't reach their numbers as far as revenue is concerned. So that's why I tell people, like, I'm not pretending when I say that I'm interested in the business, because it affects me too, right? If the company is not performing, I might be let go, right? And it's like, oh, we don't have any positions for you to work on, so there's no need for your role. So
Right.
I try to make sure that I check those reports and I go to those meetings and I ask questions too as to, how are we doing as an organization?
That's a good point. So have you ever found yourself in the CEO's office explaining like, hey, this guy asked for this, but we think he's worth it?
No, I don't. Actually, the only conversation I've had with him with business was funny, and he just kept it real with me. He was like, it's cheaper to hire overseas. So if you want to hire a bunch of engineers in India, go nuts. But he's like, as far as the US is concerned, we're gonna try to like rein in spending a little bit. So. And it's funny, I was just like, but then I have to deal with immigration.
Right. But it makes sense from a business standpoint, though.
Yes, very much so. Yeah.
As much as you say, oh, it doesn't sound American, it's capitalism.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
Hey,
what no,
Kenny got a question.
No, Mark, I was just going to piggyback off you, or not piggyback, but basically you mentioned something about the offer letter asking for extra stuff. I did that in my current role, and both of them got approved. Extra hours
Nice.
and tuition. Yeah.
What you asked for?
More PTO and more boot camps. Yeah. So
Nice.
so definitely know your value.
Nice.
I always ask,
So,
even though I've never
you need to have like a
successfully-
negotiation masterclass, Kenny.
Yeah,
man.
definitely.
I'll think of something. I got you.
Go ahead, Marco.
No, I ain't have anything. But go ahead.
Why you talking over me then, man? Why not kick you out of the room, bro?
Just practicing.
Ismaelle, I noticed you said your hiring manager when you interviewed at least and said that you mentioned 3 rounds, right? He said he'll schedule you for your second and third. Is that typically how you guys roll? 3 rounds of interviews, or is it more? Is it different for technical staff?
Yeah, so I would say 3. I would say are more senior level roles, because there's the one-on-one interview that you might have with one hiring manager, and then for our engineers, they like to do like a panel interview, right? Where they'll have a current engineer, they'll have like a team lead, or they might have 2 team leads, and everyone wants to go around and ask, technical questions or ask behavioral based questions. I don't want to say I don't see the value of behavioral based questions, but basically, I think people get good at Googling.
Behavioral based questioning?
Yeah, so a behavioral based question could be like,
how do you deal with conflict with another,
right,
associate?
Are you naughty or nice?
Right, exactly. So give me an example of a time where, I don't know, you failed to complete, a project, by the deadline. How did you handle that, right?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna tell you that shit.
That part, right? I mean, I don't. At this point, I really.
I'm always on time.
I don't put a lot of weight on those questions. I look for people that are sharp, right? I look for people who are not umming me to death. That's a big pet peeve of mine. My goodness, if I'm on the phone with an engineer who's been in the industry for 15 to 20 years and I ask you a basic question and you're umming me, I'm just like,
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Hey, you asked me a question about when is the last time I turned something in. Like, man, I have a hard time turning stuff in on time because I'm always early.
I like that. I like that. Nice. Yeah.
Just don't call my references.
But honestly, though, what I've realized is even if I'm talking to a candidate that's not the most extrovert, is people do respond to your energy. I'm a high energy, positive person, and I try to make sure that the conversations, go well. I'm not here to make you uncomfortable. I'm not here to interrogate you. If there are a couple of gaps in your resume, I might say like, hey, I noticed that, you've done a lot of contract positions, let's talk about it. And the reason why I do that is because if you're not comfortable disclosing that to me as a sourcer or as a recruiter, if the hiring manager goes to ask you, right, and there's a little bit of tension there, then, I kind of want to prep the candidate as much as possible for what's to come in the future.
Gotcha.
So what are some of the? I mean, you kind of went through some of them already, but I want to know, what do you see the most? Where do you see candidates err the most? Is it like just not being prepared? Is it maybe trying to answer something that they know they don't know the answer to instead of just saying I can't answer that question? What do you see the most of that people could easily avoid? in your opinion?
Yeah. I would say I see a little bit of cockiness sometimes when people come from like really top companies, Google, Facebook. It's kind of just like, I know this is an interview, but my resume speaks for itself. So like when we're asking questions, they don't really want to like answer like that. And I'm just like, this is so
Wow.
corny. I'm like, honestly, these companies are wonderful organizations, but we're trying to figure out why you would be a good fit for us. Um,
People come to interviews not expecting to answer questions.
Not really talking. It's like pulling teeth.
Wow.
That's
It's
that's
been
that's
awkward. Yeah.
that sounds like a part of like it sounds like a hit against their in the behavioral side
Right.
because
It
you're probably not going to be very cohesive with the team.
Hmm.
probably speaks to why they're not at those organizations as well.
Could be. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
Giving arrogant vibes.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, no doubt.
Exactly.
Um, Parting thoughts, anybody? I mean, we're at the top of the hour. It kind of crept up on us. Ismaelle, you owe me a coffee, making me make my team wait for 15 minutes. So
Oh,
just so you
sorry.
know, just no, don't
I got you.
apologize. I was about to say, don't apologize. Just get my coffee whenever I'm in the DC area,
Oh, Boston.
Boston,
I was in
Boston. I never been to Boston.
Boston.
You should come to Boston. It's cold and windy.
Oh no, I won't come to Boston. So you got to like email me a coffee or something.
I got you.
I waited too. So I want coffee
All
as
right.
well.
So any parting thoughts before we close this thing out, Ismaelle, or any of the other guys, tech folks?
Yeah, I thought it was great. I definitely learned some stuff. So anytime I can learn something, that's a good conversation. So I like your energy, very bubbly, very inviting to a conversation. So definitely enjoyed it.
So
Nice.
Orion, the chat wants to know what company you work for, Ismaelle.
Yeah.
Charles
So
River Development.
so Charles River Development is the software company. We're owned by State Street. So if you're actively like looking for openings, it would be like statestreet.com. And go to our careers tab and you'll see like the positions that we're actively recruiting for.
Is that the best way? Would you want candidates like reaching out to you? I mean, do you want them to find you or anything like that? Like
Yeah, I
with
mean,
you
I'm
on
on
LinkedIn or something?
LinkedIn. Yeah, so the thing is, we have different like talent acquisition teams. So State Street is an investment bank. So people that are looking for more like corporate type roles, like you had mentioned earlier, like accounting, associate, or like a business analyst, like those type of analytical positions, that would fall under State Street. But anyone looking for a more technical role, um, that would be Charles River, but it would be under State Street. It's like career website because we're owned by State Street.
Got it. All right. Well, I won't give you information because I don't want them like beating you down your door or nothing like that. They go to the website that you just gave. Apply to the jobs. They got a lot of jobs, and
Yeah.
based on what she's told us, they paying no less than $300K. So
No
all right,
less
see ya.
than 300.
Just drop
Well,
that out
depends on
and
the
run.
role. Depends on the position.
They paying everybody 300K. Everybody,
Like,
all beat their door
entry
down. I
entry
want my
level
coffee.
positions with $300K. All right, cool. So that's let me go ahead and stop this so we can start.
Quiz had a
uploading.
question.
Oh, did anybody else have something?
I just want to say thank. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so let me see. So I work primarily on like engineering. I would say the ranges I've been seeing, I think on the lower end, I've seen like 110. On the higher end, I've seen 180. I've seen 200, 225, depending on the role, right? Depending on how senior the position is, how many years of experience you need, how technical the position is.
You trying to go back into the office quiz? You're on mute, brother. he said he's not even gonna come off mute. Back in the
I say,
office.
better not say it.
I don't know.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so when you go to our careers website, we do have the salary ranges, and that's new because we
Oh,
didn't
is that like
initially.
a law? I know some states is like a part of the legal system where they're requiring that you post the range for position. I think
I
it might
think
be
for us,
California or
that
something.
was the feedback. A lot of people were complaining and they're just like, you don't post the salary ranges. So I think when the decision was made to post the salary ranges, the thought is maybe if we post it, more people will apply now that they know what the range is for the role.
Right, right.
Have you seen that like happen? Has it
Yeah,
happened like that? Yeah, it has.
yeah, we've definitely had a lot more people apply depending on the position. And sometimes people apply because they know someone, right? They know
Right.
someone that works for the organization or they used to work for State Street. They left and they want to come back. I've seen a lot of those.
Oh, it's that good of a company. People just they leave and then they just like, oh no, I didn't know how bad. I didn't know how good I had it.
She's not better than you. She's not. I promise. I mean,
Is
she.
it? I
I don't
mean,
know. I think sometimes the grass is not always greener, right?
mhm.
I always kind of tell people, I'm like, if you see a ton of people just leaving to go join this particular organization and then they get laid off after 6 months, like, you know,
Yeah.
was it worth it? Maybe to some,
We
money
wouldn't tell
talks.
that
It
to you.
does, right? So for some people, you could get them to leave, just got to offer them a little bit more money, right?
Right. 10 grand more.
Yeah, but
Right. And they're out. Exactly.
it's like a temporary thing, though. Really, right? I mean, money's good, but it doesn't like it doesn't persist over a great work environment and great people. I mean, if you had one of two, right? Oh shoot, one of like three things. I always say it's like three things. You know, uh, compensation, uh, organization, and then professional, development, right? If you can give, I feel like if you can give at least if you can satisfy three of those, two of those three, people will stay, right? So you can't like pay me well and give me a crappy, organization, crappy culture, and then no real ability to push myself forward professionally. It just doesn't last. But you can pay me okay, but then I have
Upward
great
mobility.
what
Upward
yeah, upward
mobility. Or
mobility. I have great upward mobility. I enjoy the people that I work around. Yeah, a person will stay. So like I said, if two out of those three, that'll keep a candidate. That'll keep a person around. But money's like, I mean,
More money, more problem.
how long before a person that's,
Right.
oh, I want to make six figure, right? That was when I was young. That was the thing. Everyone want to make six figure.
I'm still trying to make CV.
After you've made six figures for, let's say, 3 to 5 years, it's not all that great no more. Like
I think there was
it's
a study that says that anything over 80 doesn't matter.
yeah. I can see that.
What?
I mean, you're getting taxed
Yeah.
heavier.
I mean, if you go from 80 to 200, I think that kind of matters. I mean, just a little bit. I mean,
All right. Yeah.
it's the
Okay.
water talking, y'all.
I mean,
Kenny, Jonah, you guys got anything? Y'all been quiet.
After you, Kenny.
No, no, go ahead.
All right.
Kenny been wide open there
Ismaelle,
since she said she was Haitian.
I know she Haitian, Kenny, from the motherland.
Ismaelle, it's been really dope listening to you. You sound very professional and very knowledgeable. Um, it seems like you've made a lot of headway in a short amount of time with being in this current technical space. And it's encouraging that you, as a recruiter slash sourcer, are willing to go the extra mile to learn the technology. I think that's really important when it comes down to engineers getting comfortable in the roles, because sometimes we have technical questions that first point of contact can't answer, but we really want those answers. Like, hey, is this a 24/7 shift? Is this what kind of technology are you using? Are you using Cisco or Brocade or Juniper? Is it AWS or is it GCP or Azure? So for you to be getting yourself into the technology, it makes it a lot easier for us to get comfortable with the role and, like you said, not waste anyone's time. So it's a beautiful thing to see you in the position that you are. And as Marco said earlier, you seem lovely, easy to talk to. So keep it up, stay strong, and maybe if you see my resume come across, you just slide that thing right into the win section, boy. You know what I mean? Me, Kenny, Marquise, Rico, and Marco, just slide them all into the win section.
Don't hire me. I'm in trouble.
Yeah, so it's funny that you said that because that's one thing that I definitely will ask my hiring managers when I read their job description. I just I'm like, I'm gonna need you to get to the point. Like, what do people need to know? Right? Because some of these job descriptions, it makes it seem like you need to know everything. I'm like, what do these people need to know like now? Right? You're gonna hire this person, they accept the offer, we're gonna onboard them, they pass the background check, whatever it is that we do for the onboarding, and they start. What do they need to know now? Because I can guarantee you they don't need to know all of this, right? The ins and outs. So I always make sure that my hiring managers can at least answer that question because a lot of these job descriptions are old.
Yeah.
They're just copy and paste.
Yeah.
They've been copy and pasted for the last 10 years. And I'm like, okay, well, what are you guys doing now? And that's another question I'll ask too. Like, does this job description reflect what your engineers do right now? Because if it doesn't, then we need to revamp it, right? Do some edits. Take
I'm
some
really
things
glad
out.
that you do that. That's really awesome because
Me too.
those systems engineer positions that they put out, like it's confusing. You sit there and like, systems engineer, do you mean virtualization? Do you mean hardware? Do you mean coding? And then they'll have something, throw A plus, not A plus, but C plus plus in there, or just throw Python. They'll throw all kinds of stuff in there. It's like, that's why you get 1,000 million people interviewing, but no one's really qualified.
Right.
Or that person who is qualified probably won't do anything.
That's the issue, though. That's the issue.
Right.
So they've talked about this, and well, I've heard it brought up in a couple of different conversations, but they've seen that a lot of times people of color, they won't apply to a role if they don't meet 100%, right? But other demographics, they will. But most people, they'll say, hey, if you meet 75, 80% of it, go ahead and apply.
Right.
And that's why I try to tell people, same thing. Just if you meet the bulk of the requirement, if you meet the first three bullets, go for it. That's the important stuff. Everything else was like, oh, we need to fill up this paper probably, but the first three things, those are the important things.
I agree. And if you're a quick learner, if you're willing to learn, apply. Go for it.
Yeah, sell yourself.
If you like the title,
sell yourself. Okay.
If you like the title, apply.
I really enjoy this talk. And you really opened my eyes to a lot of different things. And I wish there was more, sources and people that work in that space that have, because I can hear the savior complex coming out.
Oh, yeah.
You really want to change the way, you guys do business, and you see these deficiencies that you want to correct, because you see how it affects you guys. You see how it negatively affects candidates and causes confusion, and the like. So I definitely appreciate that, and I hope we can be the reason why you get like an influx of candidates breaking down your door.
Yeah, that would be great. And to be honest with you too, I've never had an experience like this. When you walk into your building and everybody looks at you, like, do you work here? What do you do for us type look? Every time I'm in my office and everybody, walking by, like, she has an office. Like, yeah, I got an office. What's up? I hire people for this organization, right?
Wow, they give you that look?
I do get a lot of looks. Yeah, I work with a lot of men. I work with a lot of men, right? And I think the perception is like you're a woman and you're, a Black woman at that, right? And you're on the phone with these engineers and people see that you know what you're talking about. They're just like, oh.
That's why you're here. Okay.
Right.
I mean, do you see a problem with representation? Or do you see a lack of representation in your current organization or throughout the industry? Yeah.
Throughout the industry, definitely. But, I'm not here to be a token.
Yeah.
I make that very clear. If you're going to try to take these pictures, put me on a brochure, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
Take me off the website. Don't put me on the website, right?
Yeah.
Because it's false advertisement, right? You're essentially trying to present that you're diverse. Tokenism and diversity is not the same thing, right? Those who get it, right? it's always a good look. Like, oh yeah, put her in the front, put her in the front. It's like, nah, put me in the back.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Rosa Parks, me.
Right, exactly.
And
Yeah.
that's the move. That's our play. You know, we're trying to get rid of that. I tell people I hate that shit. I hate
Yeah.
So
It
I
makes me
hate that.
uncomfortable. It does. It really does.
we got a question in the chat. They want to know how old you are.
Oh, I'm 30. With a baby face. With a baby.
Very much so. Very much so. 'Cause I thought I'm like, you seem young, but you
Chat
talk
about to
very
ask for your
mature.
number,
So very mature.
Look, the chat gonna ask for the number next. Watch. What's your number?
Somebody gonna ask. They gonna ask.
But no, you know, that's the play that we go for. You know, we're trying to get rid of that because I hate that shit. I hate that. I hate this whole, you know, first black this, first black that. I just want to be I want to be regular.
Just want to be a rock star.
I want to be regular.
Not a black
right.
rock star. I'm a rock star.
All right. Well, I think we already hit closing thoughts and we went on a different tangent. I do wish if I could change anything about this conversation, we definitely would have went more. We usually do talk more about, you know, representation. It seems like I got a lot to say about that, but we'll table it and maybe we'll have a panel where we kind of discuss that or do an AMA when we talk about that. But I do appreciate you dialing in.
Yo, Kenny. I'm sorry, not Kenny. Rico. You didn't get Kenny's closing thoughts.
I thought
just want to say no, because Jonah had jumped in. But I just want to say thank you for putting, you know, all of us are technical. We all got tech backgrounds, for putting us in a different part of the chair. So continue thriving, and thanks again for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. This is the first time I've ever done a podcast, and this was a really neat experience. I would definitely be down to do it again.
Yeah,
if you have any black engineers within your organization, point them this way. I want to talk to them.
Nice.
Yeah, and you the first black Haitian on the podcast. So
female.
Hi,
Female.
Oh man, you did my boy Kenny like
female.
Wait, Kenny, you from Haiti?
Did him dirty.
Yeah, he did me dirty, but
said it.
You're right. But I think you know only Jonah, Marquise, you. But it's all good.
Wait, Marquise, you Haitian too?
No, he.
Oh.
So I've lived in Boston all my life. I'm Haitian American. I do speak Haitian Creole with an American accent. They be trying to shade me, but I'm very much 100% Haitian. Don't do me like that.
Say something.
Speak Creole, Kenny.
Oui, me parle Creole.
Because if I didn't speak Creole, I wouldn't be Haitian. So, bon moi, ou parle Creole.
Oui, c'est pour nous parler Creole.
All right. Y'all getting out of control.
All day, every day.
Calm down.